Pay attention to this 16-year-old girl. Her name is Susana Morales. She texted her mother to say she was on her way home. A 9-minute walk she had taken many times before through the familiar streets of Gwinnett County, Georgia. It would be the last time Susana was seen alive. She became the victim of a predator who had been watching her, waiting for his moment. His name was Miles Bryant, a 22-year-old police officer. Within minutes, her family's phones lit up with Life 360 alerts. First, a possible car crash, then a sudden change in direction at high speed. And then nothing. Silence. Susana Morales disappeared into the night. This is the story of a girl who was just minutes from home when a police officer decided she would never make it. A family who fought for justice after authorities dismissed their daughter as a runaway. And a killer who believed his badge would protect him from the consequences. Susana Morales was 16 years old and everything a teenage girl should be: bright, kind, exceptionally loving, full of dreams and possibilities. She lived in Gwinnett County, Georgia with her mother Maria Bran and her sisters, including her sister Jasmine. Her family had immigrated to the United States, hopping for better opportunities, for safety, for the chance to build good lives. Susana represented all those hopes, a young woman on the cusp of adulthood, figuring out who she wanted to be. Music was Susana's passion and her refuge. She had a beautiful singing voice that could fill a room with emotion. She played the piano with skill and dedication, losing herself in melodies and harmonies. Susana was also a typical 16-year-old navigating the social world of high school. She had friends, spent time at their houses, walked familiar routes through her neighborhood. She had a cell phone that she used to stay in touch with her family, and her location was tracked through Life 360, an app that many parents use to ensure their teenagers are safe and where they say they are. On July 26, 2022, Susana spent the day with her family. It was a normal summer day, nothing particularly special or unusual. That evening, she decided to visit a friend who lived at the Sterling Glen apartment complex in Norcross. It wasn't far from home, a short walk through streets Susana knew well. She had made this trip many times before. Her mother had no reason to worry when Susana left the house. But on that day, Susana never made it home back. Someone intercepted her. Someone who had been watching, waiting, planning. Someone who saw a 16-year-old girl walking alone at night and decided she was an opportunity. And that someone was a 22-year-old Miles Bryant. He was a police officer with the Doraville Police Department in Georgia. Someone who had taken an oath to serve and protect, to uphold the law, to keep communities safe. But Bryant had a secret side that his department either didn't know about or had chosen to ignore. He had a documented history of stalking and harassing women. Former friends and ex-girlfriends would later testify that he had stalked them, that he had shown up at their homes uninvited, that he had been caught on Ring cameras trying to break into residences. At the time of Susana's disappearance, Bryant wasn't working as a regular patrol officer. He had been assigned a position as a courtesy officer at the Sterling Glen apartment complex, the exact location Susana had visited that night to see her friend. Bryant would have seen her there. He would have noticed her walking through the complex, maybe leaving the building, heading toward the exit to walk home. And something in his mind decided that Susana Morales was going to be his victim. What exactly happened in those final minutes of Susana's life, only Miles Bryant knows for certain. But the evidence would later paint a chilling picture. Bryant approached Susana, likely using his position as a police officer to gain her compliance. When a uniformed officer tells you to stop, to get in a vehicle, to cooperate, most people, especially young people, especially teenagers, do what they're told. We're taught from childhood to trust police officers, to see them as helpers and protectors. Susana probably didn't resist when Bryant approached her. She probably believed he was there to help, maybe to give her a ride home for safety, maybe to check that she was okay walking alone at night. She had no way of knowing that the man in the police uniform was a predator who had been watching her, waiting for exactly this opportunity. Bryant got Susana into his vehicle. His own defense attorney would later admit this fact during trial. Susana had been in Bryant's car that night. Once she was inside, once the doors were closed and locked, Susana was at his complete mercy. And Miles Bryant showed her no mercy at all. At some point during or immediately after Susana got into Bryant's vehicle, the Life 360 app on her phone triggered alerts that were sent to her family's phones. The first alert indicated a possible car crash. The second showed a sudden change in direction at a high rate of speed. These alerts tell a story. Something violent or sudden happened in that car, something that triggered the app's safety features. Maybe Susana's phone was thrown or dropped during a struggle. Maybe the car accelerated suddenly as Bryant realized what he was about to do. Maybe Susana fought back and the struggle triggered the sensors. After those alerts, all communication with Susana ceased. Her phone went silent. She stopped responding to texts and calls. The Life 360 location tracking stopped updating. Susana Morales had effectively vanished. Bryant killed Susana that night. The exact method of death would never be determined because her remains were so decomposed by the time they were found. But Bryant knew she was dead, knew it with certainty because he had made it happen. And then he faced the problem that all killers face. What do you do with the body? Bryant drove approximately 20 miles from where he had taken Susana to a remote wooded area near Drowning Creek Road and Highway 316 in Dacula. He chose a location that was isolated, far from casual foot traffic, the kind of place where a body might not be discovered for months or even years. He dumped Susana's remains in those woods, scattering them in the undergrowth, leaving her there alone in the dark. And then Miles Bryant did something that showed just how calculated he was. He reported his personal handgun as stolen. This wasn't a panicked reaction. This was premeditated cover-up. He reported the gun stolen just hours after Susana's disappearance, creating a paper trail that he thought would protect him if the weapon was ever found. And investigators would indeed find that exact gun near where Susana's remains were discovered, linking Bryant directly to the crime scene. When Susana didn't come home by 10 p.m., Maria Brand knew immediately that something was wrong. Her daughter had texted saying she was on her way. The walk should have taken 9 minutes. Susana was responsible, reliable, always let her family know where she was. The fact that she wasn't home and wasn't responding to calls or texts meant something terrible had happened. Maria and her family contacted the Gwinnett County Police Department, begging officers to search for Susana immediately. But what should have been the beginning of an urgent missing person investigation instead became a nightmare of bureaucratic dismissal and institutional failure. Police officers told the family they had to wait 48 hours before Susana could be officially reported as missing. 48 hours, the family begged. They pleaded. They explained that Susana had sent a text saying she was coming home, that she was seen on camera walking toward the house, that something had clearly interrupted her journey. But officers dismissed their concerns with a theory that would infuriate the family and advocates for months to come. Susana was probably just a runaway faced with police inaction. Susana's family took matters into their own hands. They launched the Justice for Susana campaign, partnering with organizations like Communitix and Alquimia Global, a human rights task force supporting immigrant and underrepresented communities. They held vigils, created social media campaigns, contacted news outlets, anything to keep Susana's name in the public eye and pressure police to actually investigate. As weeks turned into months with no leads and no body, the family's anguish grew. Where was their daughter? Was she still alive somewhere, held captive, suffering? Had she been killed immediately? They had no answers, and police seemed to have no urgency in finding any. In early 2023, 6 months after Susana's disappearance, police finally requested Susana's dental records and a DNA sample from her mother. This request was both hopeful and terrifying. It meant police thought they might have found something, but the need for dental records suggested they had found remains, not a living girl. On February 6, 2023, a man named Matthew Gilbert was off-roading near Drowning Creek Road and Highway 316 in Dacula when he made a horrific discovery. Scattered throughout the woods, he found human skull bones and other skeletal remains. He immediately contacted authorities. When investigators arrived and processed the scene, they found no clothing and no personal items belonging to Susana. The remains had been there for months, exposed to the elements, scattered by animals. On February 8, 2023, police officially confirmed through dental records what the family had been fearing for 6 months. The remains belonged to Susana Morales. The trial of Miles Bryant began in June 2024 in Gwinnett County Superior Court. Special Prosecutor Brandon Delfunt characterized Bryant as a cop-turned-killer and a monster who had used his badge and uniform not to protect, but to satisfy his predatory desires. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating, building layer upon layer of evidence that all pointed toward Bryant's guilt. Investigator John Wilbanks presented the cellular data mapping that tracked Bryant's movements on the night of the murder. The jury saw the digital trail, Bryant's phones moving from Sterling Glen Apartments to the wooded area in Dacula where Susana's body was dumped. The timeline matched perfectly with Susana's disappearance. The jury heard about Bryant's internet searches asking how long bodies take to decompose and how victims are identified by dental records. They heard testimony from the cellmate about Bryant's belief that he would get away with murder because of lack of physical evidence. They saw the body camera footage of Bryant warning a different teenage girl about being snatched up and disappearing. All of it painted a picture of a predator who had been building toward this crime. Bryant's defense attorney, Tracy Drake, admitted that Susana had been in Bryant's vehicle that night, a stunning concession that established Bryant had lied to police during the investigation. But Drake argued the case was purely circumstantial. She suggested alternative theories. Maybe Susana had died of a drug overdose and Bryant had simply panicked and dumped the body. Maybe Bryant had lied about his movements and his gun because he was afraid of losing his job, not because he was a murderer. The defense rested without calling a single witness. Bryant himself did not testify. He wouldn't face cross-examination, wouldn't have to explain the cell phone data or the internet searches, or why he reported his gun stolen hours after Susana disappeared. On Wednesday, June 12, 2024, after several hours of deliberation, the jury returned their verdict. Miles Bryant was found guilty of malice murder, felony murder, kidnapping, and filing a false report. He was found not guilty of attempted rape, likely because the decomposition of Susana's body made it impossible to prove sexual assault forensically. Judge Tamla Adkins sentenced Bryant to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder charges, plus a consecutive 12-month sentence for filing the false report. Miles Bryant would never walk free again. During sentencing, Susana's mother Maria spoke through a translator, describing the torture and pain of losing her daughter. She told the court she couldn't sleep without thinking of Susana, without imagining her final moments, without wondering if she suffered. Her sister thanked the court for finally providing the justice they had sought for nearly 2 years. Miles Bryant is serving life without parole for murdering 16-year-old Susana Morales. But the Morales family and advocacy groups like the Gathering for Justice continue demanding accountability from the Doraville Police Department. They want answers about how a man with a history of stalking women was hired as an officer. They demand policy reform so no family is ever told to wait 48 hours before reporting their child missing. Susana's family partnered with Alquimia Global to ensure missing persons from immigrant and underrepresented communities receive the same urgency as others. Susana Morales should have made it home that night. She was just houses away. Instead, a man sworn to protect her became her killer. Her legacy is the fight to ensure no other family suffers the same institutional failures and betrayals that allowed her murder.